this devotional series, we've been asking 5 questions. We've asked 4 of them already, and in the last session, we asked the question, have you ever felt alone? In this session, we're going to ask the question, have you ever felt disconnected? Life was moving on, but you weren't quite moving in the same pace, or lots of things were going on, but you weren't sort of connected to what was happening. Many, many years ago, there was a little place near the city where I lived that I loved to go and have my devotions. It was by an orange grove, and just below the orange grove there was a dip, a little valley, and in that valley there was a huge old oak tree. And I remember sitting under that oak tree and knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that that tree would live longer than I would. And so I wanted to do something for all the children that might play under it after I was gone. I took a quarter, because I remember once finding a quarter in the bark of a tree, and I wanted to pass it on. So I took a quarter, and I decided where within that tree was I going to place it. And I made several little attempts, and then I found just the perfect place. I took the quarter and I put it inside the bark near the base, because I thought if children were playing, they wouldn't be able to reach too high, near the base of the tree. And each day when I would go back to have my devotions under that tree, I would check and make sure that quarter was still there. And sure enough, it was. Then I moved away. About 20 years later, I came back to that site. And I went to the street where the old tree stood. And I thought, well, now that's strange. I thought it was on this street. Then I went to just a little further down. It must be this block, because I know it's on this street. A little further down. And I couldn't find my tree. And all of a sudden I realized that where my tree had stood was a new housing development that had no trees. They had leveled, taken out all the trees, and it looked like they were beginning to plant new ones in, but the tree was actually gone. And I stood and I looked. There wasn't even a valley, little valley left. And I was so disappointed. I was disappointed because I had a connection to that tree, and I believe that somehow it had a connection to other people, other children, in other ways. And I was upset that the environment was so expendable. So I began to ask the question, what importance does the environment have to us, and are we connected to it? And is it somehow wrong for us to connect to it because it's disappearing very quickly? Because not only was the tree gone, the whole orchard was gone. Have you ever felt disconnected? Have you ever felt that there's some part of life that you just cannot connect with, either because it's moving too quickly or because it's being removed? Wholeness is about connecting even with the environment, taking care of it, and letting it take care of you. The text I want to point to at this point is Job. Job 12. Ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds of the air and they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature. So in this series, we've talked about wholeness in 5 questions. And we've talked about them in this way, that wholeness is about being connected to God, a God who loves us and heals us in ways we can't imagine. We've talked about being connected to oneself, about being steady and restful rather than fragmented inside. We've talked about being connected to significant others and family and allowing them to help relieve our burdens and carry them with us. We've talked about being connected to community and realizing that, yes, even that person is part of our community. And we've talked about being connected to the environment and how important it is to take care of it and let it take care of us. And I'd like to end this series with my favorite story in Scripture, and that is the story of the 10 lepers, told in Luke 17. There are 10 men that want one thing, and it is the most important thing, and that is to be relieved of the leprosy that eats away at their skin day by day, silently but awfully. That's what they want. That is the only thing. And so they come to Jesus and they're talking about that. And Jesus says, go, show yourselves to whom? Go show yourselves to the priest, to the doctors, to the people who will declare that you no longer have leprosy. Oh, they've heard that before. They know exactly what to do with that. And so they go, walking along, going to the priest. And the scripture says that on the way, they look down and realize that their leprosy is healed. The Greek word there is katharizo, and it means just exactly how it sounds. The leprosy has been drained away. Catharsis, catheter. It has simply drained away, disappeared. The leprosy is gone. The thing they have wanted all their lives has just happened. Now, one thing you don't expect them to do is go running backwards. If someone told you that you would win the lottery if you went to Texas, and on the way to Texas you won it, would you go back? No. So, of course, the 10 are going to go forward and show themselves to the priest, because that's what needs to happen before they can be declared whole. But there is one man, a Sadducee, the least of all, who decides to go back. Now, most theologians think he went back to thank Jesus. I don't think that's why he turned back. I think he turned back because suddenly it occurred to him that the priest was not forward. The priest was behind. The real priest, the priest who could do something more than simply relieve his skin of leprosy. The priest that could give him something deeper, because all of a sudden, just living without leprosy was not a life enough. And so he goes back and he throws him at Jesus' feet. And Jesus says, well, where are the other 9? Is it just this Samaritan? The person that most people would consider is kind of, half good? Is it this man who recognizes the spot to be? And then Jesus says to this Samaritan, go, you are made well. The word used there is sozo, entirely made clean, healed, saved. I'm going to ask the question again. Have you ever felt burdened? Have you ever felt broken? Have you ever felt fragmented? Have you ever felt alone? Have you ever felt disconnected? Have you ever wished that the pieces of that puzzle would in fact make a picture? Have you ever questioned whether or not you really could be whole? Listen carefully, because not everyone hears it. There is a voice asking you, as he asked that Samaritan, wilt thou be made whole?